So there's a huge game sale going on the Mac App Store right now. And it's pretty much the first time I've seen the Mac App Store put together a curated, promoted list like this. And today we're going to go ahead and dive into this because this contains pretty much all of the major Apple Silicon Mac releases over the last 2 years. So today what I want to do is talk about whether this Mac App Store sale is a good deal or not. We'll be looking through the list of all of the games and deciding whether you should be buying the Mac App Store version, maybe picking them up on Steam instead, and whether any of these games are actually a good deal for your Apple Silicon Mac. So we're pretty much just going to go through this in order. So the first game on this list is Death Stranding. Death Stranding is basically the last major Apple Silicon Mac release that we had, and it's being sold for $19.99, which is actually the same discounted price that it was being sold at first release. And basically this is an excellent port, so it works great whether you're playing this on the M3 Max or the base M1 MacBook Air. This edition of the game not only works on macOS, but you also get the included iPhone and iPad versions too, which also do cloud syncing together. So this is a really great deal. So I covered Death Stranding before already. If you want to see more details about it, check out the link in the description for my dedicated video for Death Stranding on Mac. So next up is the cat puzzle game Stray. So Stray is this really cool futuristic cat puzzle game set in this post-apocalyptic kind of neon noir stealth adventure game. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's a great Apple Silicon Mac port as well. So currently Stray is on sale for £16.49. However, the question we should be asking ourselves is, should you be buying this on the Mac App Store or on Steam? Because if you buy this game on the Mac App Store, you're limited to only Apple devices being able to play this game. You do have family sharing you can share with other users, but if you buy the same game on Steam, you get both the Windows version and the macOS version. And that also means that you can play the game on something like a Steam Deck as well. If you happen to go ahead and purchase one of these, then the Steam option is going to be way more flexible. So next up, we're going to be looking at the game Lies of P, which is a Dark Souls-like game. So it's a very challenging action RPG type game, and it's very reminiscent of Dark Souls. And this is a very futuristic fantasy take on Pinocchio, and it's a very cool game, works great even on the base Apple Silicon Mac, and it's being sold here for $37.49. However, you can also buy this game on Steam as well. So this is actually being sold at full price for $49.99. But if you look at the Steam key resellers, you'll see that this is actually being sold at the same price, $37.49, $37.49 here as well. So once again, do you want to be able to just play this game on the Mac App Store, or do you want the flexibility of having this on Steam? You can play it on the Mac or Windows or on a Steam Deck or anything else in the future. That's for you to decide. So below here we have Resident Evil 4, so another huge Apple Silicon Mac release of the last year. And what's great about this release is that it basically works great on all of the desktop and laptop Macs. And what we also get is the ability to play this game on an iPhone and an iPad as well. So you get kind of 3 games in one. It's basically free to play the first level of the game, which I do recommend that you do no matter whether you decide to buy this or not. But it does mean that the main game itself, which is actually a DLC, can't actually be shared with family sharing. So what's one of the big disadvantages? Below here we have Capcom's Resident Evil Village. So this is a little bit of an older game now. This is only £13. So the base game in US dollars is $39.99 and it's been reduced down to $15.99. So this is pretty much the biggest sale of the entire Mac App Store, I'd say. It's a Resident Evil game in a first-person perspective. The DLC adds a third-person perspective as well. What's interesting about this version is that unlike Resident Evil 4, we don't get an iPhone or an iPad version of this game. Those are actually separate App Store entries, which makes this a little bit confusing. And no, unfortunately, we can't play the Steam version of this game. So if you want to play one of the best Apple Silicon Mac games that's been released so far, this is a great price for this title. Make sure to check it out. So below this, we have the simulation driving game SnowRunner. So this is a game where you have to navigate a lot of tricky terrain using all different kinds of vehicles. And it's cool to see this at a sale at $14.99. But unfortunately, the Mac App Store sale has been trumped a bit by the Steam version of the same game. So SnowRunner here, you get the Windows and the Mac version, and it's actually cheaper than the Mac App Store. So unfortunately, this one's a dud. You definitely want to be buying this from Steam instead of the Mac App Store. Next, we're going to be looking at the legendary remake of Myst. So just check this out. Again, just like SnowRunner, we have a price which is actually higher on the Mac App Store compared to the Steam version. So this is $17.99 here, and this is $14.99. Not only do you get the Windows and the Mac version on Steam, you also have VR support as well, which the Mac version just doesn't have at all. So it's nice to see this game is being featured by the Mac App Store, but really just get it on the Steam instead. You'll have a lot more flexibility and you'll be paying a lower price too. So next up is Fort Solis. Fort Solis is this kind of horror adventure game, and the Mac App Store version is actually substantially cheaper than the Steam version is right now. However, there are issues with the Mac port of this game. You can check the reviews here. It's saying here that even on the high-end chips like the M2 Max, it refuses to play well. So it's poorly optimized. This is an Unreal Engine 5.2 game. It's very demanding, but unfortunately not enough work has been put into actually optimizing this game for basically any Apple Silicon Mac. Mac. So unfortunately, I can't really recommend this game. Next up is Firmament, another first-person adventure game in the vein of Myst, made by these same developers. So this is $24.99. It's actually cheaper than the Steam version of the same game, £29.50. And so it might be worth a purchase if you haven't played this already. You'll probably enjoy it if you enjoy playing these kind of first-person adventure puzzle games. So next up, we'll be looking at The Forgotten City, which is being sold for the record low price of $7.99. So this is a really good deal because on Steam, if you want to buy this, it's $20.99, and there is no Mac version on Steam. So if you want the Mac version, it's exclusive to the Mac App Store. So I've heard very variable things about the actual quality of this Mac port. However, out of all of the games that I'm listing today, this is probably one I'm going to be buying because it has quite a unique premise. It used to be based on a Skyrim mod, but the developer decided to make it into a fully independent published game, and they changed the setting from a fantasy setting into this kind of ancient Roman setting based on this time loop. So I've heard a lot about it and I'm quite keen to play it. I've also heard that it's not particularly well optimized. There aren't many reviews. I don't think many people have actually played this, but definitely think about checking this one out. So lastly, we'll be looking at the game Neon Beats. So this one is a bit of a mystery to me. I don't really understand why it's featured on this list, and I don't quite understand what the point of this listing is because it doesn't even cost £1. And what confuses me is the fact that if we go to Steam, we can type in Neon Beats, there is a Mac version of this game and it's actually free to play. So I don't really understand what the point of this is. There's also this DLC which contains 5 extra levels. So I'm not really sure why you'd want to buy this version of the game when you can play the Steam version for free. If anyone's a fan of this game, then make sure to let me know in the comments. So that's the first Apple Silicon Mac game sale that I've seen on the Mac App Store. And out of all of these games, I'd definitely be picking up Death Stranding, Resident Evil Village for Mac, Resident Evil 4. So those are the 3 big games. And the 4th game that I'd probably be looking at is The Forgotten City, which is also Mac App Store exclusive. The rest of them, I really think about buying them on Steam. The thing is that Steam also has pretty aggressive sales in the future, so I expect a lot of these games to be even cheaper than the Mac App Store, and they wouldn't be encumbered by many of the issues that plague the Mac App Store. For example, if you're trying to download any large games, feel like Death Stranding is 77 gigabytes in size. Because of the way that the Mac App Store is structured, you need about double the amount of space on your internal solid state drive in order to download these games. I've listed all of these issues in a previous video about all of the problems with the Mac App Store, so make sure to check that out. There are also a bunch of games I think which are missing from this list. So one of them, for example, is Grid Legends. So and this game is still being sold at full price, and it's a shame because this is pretty much a pretty big deal for a driving game on the Mac. It deserves to be featured with the rest of these games, so it's a real shame that it hasn't been included. But anyway, it's a really interesting first effort. So let me know what you think about this first Mac App Store game sale that I've seen so far. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.